Late on a courtyard night, a small painted boat rocked under a willow, and a woman's voice floated soft and clear across the water. On the stone gallery, a young scholar pressed a brush to the wall and wrote a single line of a song, the ink sliding faintly like a secret. Chen Hsiao-lien was 16 or 17 when he first lived in the school that occupied an old temple courtyard. There were many pupils and a patient tutor, but one of the boys stood out. He called himself Chu and said he came from the north. He had a thin face, spare hands, and the restless look of someone who did not sleep when others did. Chu never went home. He ate at the school, slept on the narrow straw pallet, and spent every spare hour with his head in a book. When asked why he worked so hard, he would say, without boasting, that his family was poor, and every coin for books had to be earned. "If I add half a night to each day," he explained once to Chen, 2 days of my work are worth 3 of an ordinary man. Chen admired that devotion and wanted to live with Chu in the schoolrooms. They ate from the same bowl, sat side by side at the low table, and at night they shared a single pallet. Their friendship grew quiet and sure in the smell of lamp oil and old paper. One evening, when Chen proposed moving his bedding closer, Chu stopped him. He had a plan. "Our tutor's knowledge is good," Chu said, "but I think old Master Lu at the city gate knows more. He is from Zhejiang, and he once lectured widely. Let us go to him. He will make us better scholars." At the end of each month, the city tutors counted up fees and let pupils choose to stay or go. So Chen and Chu walked together to Master Lu. The old teacher had fallen on hard times and taught children to live by his learning. He welcomed the 2 earnest youths, and Chu proved himself nearly immediate in learning. Hard lessons turned into understanding as soon as his eyes read them. Master Lu favoured him openly, and Chen felt a mixture of gratitude and a little envy. They read together by day and slept in the same narrow bed at night. The house murmured around them and the lamp burned. Then, suddenly, at the end of 1 month, with little warning, Chu asked leave and went away. 10 days passed. 20. The students whispered, puzzled. Chen had business at the Tianning Temple. In the temple's long covered corridor, he found Chu bent over a bundle of split sticks, rubbing sulphur on the ends to make little fire starters. Night had already turned the yard to iron. The temple bell had not yet struck. Chu looked up, and his face went quiet and a little shameful. Chen stopped and asked why he had cut his time away from study. Chu took Chen aside, lowering his voice to a near whisper. He told the truth. His family could not raise enough money for fees. To keep studying, he had to do 2 weeks of petty trade to pay for a month of lessons. He had not wanted Chen to know. He had hidden his work. Chen's sense of friendship overwhelmed him. He told Chu to come back and promised to help. He even sent a servant to gather up the fiery sticks and put them away. Chen went home that night and, for a while, took coins from his father's shop to pay Chu's fees. He lied about the missing cash. His father confronted him when the till came up short and scolded him for wasting family goods on books rather than business. Only then did Chen tell his father the whole story. His father, a man who built wealth by trade and counted profit first, stopped the schooling. Chen was to quit and help in the shop. Chen obeyed, heavy with shame and grief. Chu, who had never wished to be the reason for another's ruin, was filled with remorse. He bowed to Master Lu and prepared to leave, thinking he had brought misfortune to his friend. Master Lu would not allow it. He scolded Chu gently. "If you suffered in silence, why did you not tell me?" The old man then repaid Chen's father every coin that had been taken and kept Chu at his side, feeding him and teaching him like a son. Chu stayed, and Chen, formally dismissed, still came often. He and Chu met at tea-houses, and, despite the stain of the missing money, their friendship continued. At first, Chu avoided Chen's invitations to drink because of pride, but Chen kept insisting, and more than one evening ended with the two of them in a low-roofed tavern, sharing simple wine and books. 2 years passed. Chen's father died. Chen, with a new quiet in him, asked Master Lu to accept him again as a pupil. The old teacher, moved by the boy's sincerity, agreed. But time off had made Chen lag. Chu had advanced much further, and the difference was plain. Months later, Master Lu heard news that his eldest son, who had gone from Zhejiang to seek his fortune in the capital, was returning with some money and would take his father back home. The students gathered modest contributions so the teacher could return to Zhejiang. Everyone was relieved and excited, but Chu only wept and stayed by the doorway. When the parting day came, Master Lu clasped Chen by the shoulder and said, "Treat Chu as your teacher. Learn from him as if he were your elder brother." Chen promised, and, in truth, asked Chu to live in his house and be his teacher. Chu accepted with a gentle nod. Not long after, Chen passed the local examinations and prepared to sit for the provincial test as a secondary candidate. He worried he might not finish his articles in time. Chu stepped forward without hesitation and offered to sit in his place. It sounded rash, but it was offered with the same earnestness that had governed everything else in Chu's life. When the day of the provincial exam arrived, Chu said he had a cousin to accompany Chen to the seat where candidates assembled. He introduced a man named Liu Tianzhou and asked Chen to trust him. The three of them travelled together and lodged at Liu's house beneath a sky heavy with mid-autumn light. The household had no women. Chen was shown into the inner courtyard where he would sleep. On the day of the festival, Liu proposed a diversion. "The imperial garden will be full of music and lanterns," he said. "Let us go. It will calm the mind and be easy to be back in time." They took a painted boat for the lake, a little tea chest and wineskin tucked aboard. A lanterned world floated by them, pavilions, hanging blossoms, the soft gossip of other boats. Liu asked the boy who ran the oars to call a singer from a nearby pleasure house. In moments, a woman came, delicate and famous in the capital for poems and song. Liaozhai. She recognized Chen faintly. They had met once at a friendly gathering. Liaozhai carried a sadness on her face that made her music thin and sharp. She stepped into the boat and sang a dirge-like air, and Chen, hearing the mournful words, felt a spike of anger at the impropriety of a living song for death. He scolded gently, then smiled, and Liaozhai recovered, offering a bright, flirtatious piece instead. Moved, Chen seized his brush and copied a short stanza of a song she had once written. The lines of Washing Brook everybody liked. Then, in a moment of private courage or vanity, He wrote that verse on the long corridor wall of the imperial garden when the boat put ashore. The ink lay fresh and bright against the old plaster. That night, after the music and the laughter, Chen returned to Liu's house. He was alone in the shadowed hall when a figure appeared and stumbled toward him. For a breath he thought it was Chu. Then the figure collapsed against him, and the household servants crowded in with concern. Chen felt the sickening lurch of vertigo, and for a moment he thought himself falling. When he steadied himself, Chu stood at his side, ghostly pale, disoriented as if waking from a long sleep. His eyes were both familiar and strange, and he bowed his head with a weight that looked like apology. Chen sent the servants away and stayed with his friend. Chu explained in a soft voice that was not exactly a confession and not exactly a complaint. He told Chen that he had not always been alive, in the way Chen understood living. He had once been a spirit with ties that kept him in a kind of delay. He had not been reborn when he should have been, because he could not forget the kindness and the long, patient friendship Chen had shown. He had clung, like a shadow, to Chen's life. "So I became what I must to repay you," Chu said. "I attached myself to your path so that I might stand in for you in the exams. I could do what you could not. The 3 rounds of tests were taken, the hall, the provincial, and the final. And when the course was done, my longing was satisfied." Chen, stunned and not yet believing, begged him to take the next exams as well, the higher seats that led to official rank. But Chu shook his head. He said Chen's family line was thin of favor. It was not a house that could carry the honors of official reward. He said he felt a pull toward Master Lu, who had treated him as a father, and toward a cousin who worked in the records of the underworld. He had petitioned that cousin to plead his case below, to ask the judges of passing souls to allow him to become Master Lu's adopted son in the orders of rebirth. It was a strange mercy he sought, one that might let him be reborn into a place where he could serve the old man's house. Then Chu rose to go. But before he left, he asked Chen for a mark of trust, a sign that would bind their names across the rift between life and death. He held out his 2 hands and asked Chen to write the character for Chu on each of his palms. Chen, with a trembling brush, wrote the name into the soft flesh of Chen's friend. It was a small, intimate act, and when it was done, Chu smiled as if a great burden had been eased. He refused a feast to speed him on his way. He told Chen simply to remember him if chance brought Chen to Zhejiang after the provincial results were announced. Then he went to the doorway. At the threshold a man waited. He came as any traveller might, but his touch was not ordinary. He reached to press his palm to Chu's head, and at the smallest contact Chu's body went soft and flattened, like a pressed paper doll. The man scooped him up with a reverent business-like motion, tucked him into a rough bag, and shouldered him away into the night. Chen spent the rest of the night turning over the events in a small, raw mind. Morning brought errands and ordinary details that made his heart ache less. He went to the place where Li Yun had sung and found, to his horror, that the house lay closed and empty. Guests spoke in hushed tones. The famous courtesan had died quietly a few days before. The poem he had scratched on the corridor wall was still there, but the ink had already faded, blurred as if no hand had meant it to remain. Chen touched the characters with a troubled care and felt suddenly as if the words had been written by another hand entirely. He understood then, with a cold certainty, the man who had sung to them that night had not been wholly alive. In the days that followed, Chen found small things that confirmed the strangeness. The smell of incense where there should have been none. A way a chair sat cooler after someone had left. A feeling of hands guiding him to a book, just when he needed it. He held the memory of Chu like a warm stone in his chest. A short time later, the proclamation of successful candidates came down. Chen's name was on the list. He had passed to the higher office of the provincial hall. He prepared a journey to Zhejiang to visit Master Lu and to repay that old teacher whose faith had kept Chu and had kept Chen in learning. When Chen arrived at Master Lu's house in Zhejiang, he found the old man surrounded by an unusual quiet. Master Lu's wife, who for decades had been childless, had, in the later season of life, given birth to a son. The baby's little hands, clenched almost like iron, would not open. People thought it a sign of delicate health. The child would not unfold his fingers. Chen, remembering the marks he had placed on Chu's palms, asked a private audience with the child. He took the swaddled tiny hands in his own, and with a quick, breath-held hope, opened them. The fingers uncurled, as if the child had always been waiting for that touch. Chen looked down at the palms and saw 2 clear, neat marks. Each palm held the same character he had written on Chu that autumn night. The household closed around Chen with astonishment. Master Lu took the news quietly at first, then with a shaken laugh and salt tears. Chen told the whole story to them, the classes in the temple, the nights of shared bedding, the theft from the till, the teacher's repentance, Chu's devotion, the boat, the confession, and the flattening at the door. He described the final request and the writing of the name in the palms. Master Lu and his family were both amazed and comforted. Here was a strange completion. A nameless, wandering soul had become a bond between 2 households. They took wonder for blessing. Chen gave the old man a modest sum of money to ease travel and thanks, then prepared to leave. In time, Master Lu returned to the capital to take his own higher place in the world. He lodged for a while in Chen's house when the grander examinations required his presence. His new little son, now safely growing, had the marks on his palms, and when the boy came of age, he proved himself a keen student. He passed the local test at 13 and later rose to rank. The story of Chu became a quiet thing, people said, when the lamps were low, a tale of devotion that looked like madness, until it became what it intended to be, a shelter for another. Chen went on in study and in life with that memory bound into him. He kept a space in his heart for a friend who had not been allowed the ordinary years of life, but had used the time he had to do what he could for another. When he spoke of Chu, he did not call him a tragedy. He called him a name. Years after, people would remember the small, peculiar details as if they were proof. The faded ink on the garden wall, the quiet way Li Yun's laughter had sounded like wind through bells, the soft way a hand could close and hold, even when the body could not. Master Lu's son grew into a scholar whose fingers bore the mark of another life, a little signature of devotion written by a friend. Chen returned to the capital for his own affairs and kept the lesson of those nights like a simple lamp. He learned that kindness could look like folly, and that loyalty could reach beyond the rules of living. Chu's name in the palms had carried more than promise. It carried a sign that names could travel across the thin places. In the end, the story holds a quiet kindness, a life given, in whatever form it had, for a friend's sake. It does not ask for miracles, only for steadiness, and the courage to be the one who stays.